starting right now. Okay. Let me just share it on some pages real quick. Hold on. Share. Everybody share. Share to their pages.
Yeah, I can't share.
Yeah, I know. That's why I have to take the minute to. Okay, Lorraine is live on Latino Empowerment.
Thank you, my brother.
I'm going to try. Let me try.
Live on People Before Politics. I'll get everything else afterwards. Okay, so let me pull up what else I needed. There we go. Welcome. This is Black Westchester Presents the People Before Politics radio show, episode 263. We are on every Sunday, 6 to 8. We're not in the mix right now. We're doing this COVID live Facebook thing through Zoom. And I thank all of y'all for tuning in and rocking out with us. We got a good show today. For the first hour, we have Sonia Pruitt, who is the president of the National Association, National Black Police Association. Excuse me. There's too many national everything. There's so many national everything. This is the point when we was in the studio, I would hit the applause button and you would hear it right now. So imaginary applause going on right now. Of course, I got Black by Popular Demand, my partner, and all this. Damon K. Jones is live in the building. We have the lovely Latina Lorraine Lopez, our co-host right now, and we have a couple other people. So we've been dealing with some of the stuff going on and this George Floyd stuff and everything in the first hour. The second hour, for all of y'all who were tuned in expecting to see Michelle MCC, the candidate running against AOC, she will now be on at 7 o'clock. So tune in and continue to hold out and rock. This is going to be a very important conversation we have. But she will be on at 7 o'clock, from 7 to 8.
Michelle Caruso-Cabrera.
There you go. Thank you very much. MCC.
Cuban Italian.
Okay. What'd you say, Lorraine?
I said Cuban Italian.
All right, all that. So MCC, who is challenging AOC, will be on at 7 p.m. I wanted to start this off. Let me pull it up again real quick. And I thought this was very important because we posted this 4 years ago, actually. It's crazy. Is Michelle Alexander, the author of what was her book, Damon? You always
The New Jim Crow.
The New Jim Crow. Yes. She made a statement that was actually 4 years ago and was in response to the killing of Philando Castile, which happened 18 miles from Minneapolis, ironically, in Falcon Heights. And what she wrote at the time, she says, and I will read it, I have struggled to find words to express what I thought and felt as I watched the videos of Alton Sterling and Philando Castile. Now insert George Floyd instead of their names, being killed by the police. Last night I wanted to say something that hasn't been said 100 times before. It finally dawned on me there is nothing to say that hasn't been said before. As I was preparing to write about the oldness of all of this and share some wisdom passed down from struggles of earlier eras, I heard on the news that 11 officers have been shot in Dallas. This is 4 years ago. Several killed in sniper fires. My finger froze on the keys. I could not bring myself to recycle old truths. Something more is required, but what? I think we all know deep down there is something more is required of us now. The truth is difficult to face because it's inconvenient and deeply unsettling. And yet silence isn't an option. On any given day, there's always something I'd rather be doing than facing the ugly, racist underbelly of America. I know I am not alone. But I also know that the families of the slain officers, the families of all those who have been killed by police, would rather not be attending funerals. I'm sure that many who refuse to ride segregated buses in Montgomery after Rosa Parks stood her ground, wish they could have taken the bus rather than walk miles in protest, day after day for a whole year. But they knew they had to walk. If change is ever going to come, they were going to have to walk, and so do we. What it means to walk today will be different for different people and different groups and in different places. I'm asking myself tonight what I need to do in the months and years to come to walk my walk with greater courage. It's a question that requires some time and reflection. I hope it's a question we are all asking ourselves. In recent years, I've come to believe that truly transformative change depends more on thoughtful creation of new ways of being than reflecting reactions of the old. What is happening is now is very, very old. We have some habits of responding to this familiar pain and trauma that are not serving us well. And in many respects, it is amazing that we endure it all. I'm inspired again and again by so many of the beautiful, brilliant, and darling activists that is unfolding all over the country. Yet, I also know there is more, that more is required than purely reactive protests and politics. A profound shift in our collective consciousness must occur, a shift that makes possible a new America. It goes on, and I'll put the link in the comment section on Facebook so y'all can all read it. But I just wanted to start off with that and let y'all, because that basically it was written 4 years ago about something that happened 18 miles away, and we're here again. And these words, I could not have said them any better. I could have written something, but I could not have been more profound than what she said. So I wanted to start off with that. Damon, you want to chime in or anything first? I sent it to you all so you can read it. So
I mean, she's absolutely right. Like, you know, I'm tired of repeating myself, man. It's almost like, you know, we've been here before. We know what needs to be done, but we want to placate and advocate in emotions, and then we have those that are using this for their own advancement, personal advancement, which I call protest profiteers. And at the end of the day, nobody's talking about the real issues that need to be done. Right? I'm not feeling politicians that want to get out and march, but don't go into City Hall and change laws, legislation, and policies in dealing with their police department. You know, it's nice that Mayor Mike Spano marched, but his police department was under consent decree by the Department of Justice for violating Black and brown people's civil rights.
Yes, and I want to speak on that too. Yes.
And just 10 years ago, they just started wearing name tags.
Yeah.
Because of the work that Karen Edmondson did in the NAACP.
My sister, yes, she did. Yes.
You know, you have Cuomo up here talking all that crazy talk, but when he was Attorney General, they sent back the police complaints that Karen Edmondson from the NAACP sent him as Attorney General to investigate Yonkers Police Department. Mm-hmm. So she had to go to the Department of Justice. I was in the meeting with Reverend Richardson and Al Sharpton when now Governor Cuomo was Attorney General, trying to get him to investigate the killing of Detective Ridley. It didn't happen. So you know, y'all politicians can really miss me with that bullshit, because you have to start legislating oversight of your police officers. You have to start having the actual policies especially use of force policies when dealing with dealing with your police officers. You have to start firing some of these motherfuckers straight up, because we all know some of them don't need to be on the job. And that's the only way you're going to change the culture, if we start firing them. We're rioting because the mayor and the chief did the right thing, but the DA's office was slow to react. That's how this set up, other than people that coming from the outside. But they actually did the right thing within 24 hours. That's unheard of.
Exactly, yes.
That's unheard of in a police department, to fire someone within 24 hours.
Yes.
Usually they got excuses.
You can't deny the facts.
Exactly.
You can't deny the facts.
Usually they have excuses. Oh, we gotta, due process. We gotta do this. Usually we hear the usual excuses. Well, it's in their contract, all of that. No, they fired them. They fired them. And now, and not one of these profiteers from this protesting commended the chief and the mayor on that. Not one. But see, we're sitting here in our states with our police departments that are just as bad as the police department in or worse. So the governor right now, why don't the governor do executive order? Why don't all these Democratic governors in the United States, all the Democratic governors, we probably won't get the Republicans, but the Democratic governors do executive orders. If you intentionally or unintentionally violate your policy, procedures, and training that causes seriously injury or death, it's a crime. It's not hard. Sign it and put it out there. That's when you can tell me that you're really doing something as an elected official.
That you're listening.
Exactly. Instead of patting Negroes on the back and sending pastors and preachers out there to try to quiet them down. Legislate. Because nothing's changed.
By the way, pastors and preachers are another story. We got to talk about them.
Exactly. Sonia, you could go. Man, it's crazy.
I've been traumatized all week. Worrying about my sons, the sons of my friends, our daughters too. Because there's nothing, we got Sandra Bland's and Breonna Taylor's. And everybody who, you quoted Michelle Alexander, but there's been so many other people in the history of, especially since the Civil Rights Movement, that have repeatedly pointed out how we are always at a standstill. Stuff happens, we're at a standstill. Another shooting, we're at a standstill. Somebody's house, the door done got broken in and they got killed, at a standstill. Black man unarmed, at a standstill. Mentally ill, busting into your house, you mentally ill, at a standstill. Shooting through the garage door, at a standstill.
Yes.
And I've been, since I have one month left in my active law enforcement career. And so I'm still kind of plugged into the police department. And so of course I'm going to look to see what my peers are saying. And the people who I work with, and they're all in, oh, this was despicable. Oh, this was terrible. Oh. But I haven't seen, besides my inner circle, I haven't seen one police officer say, if I ever see somebody do that, it's going to be me and them. If I ever see someone do that, I'm going to have to report them. We can't keep standing for this. I'm sort of I'm getting it now. I think I'm seeing what they talking about, these Black officers and these black citizens. I haven't seen it yet. Instead, I saw this campaign, put up a picture of you in your uniform to show solidarity with us. because, you know, we're going through a hard time now. Now, while I will not curse here, I will say them motherfuckers is crazy.
Exactly.
Who are they talking to? Okay, they need to be talking to the Black community. Like, hey, we got y'all. We got your back. Maybe we don't understand it fully even. But we want to be there. We want this to stop. We get that there has been some things happening. Police brutality is real against Black people. Unarmed Black men are losing their lives in situations where white men would not have lost theirs. I want to hear that.
Right.
And I'm going to ask to hear that. Okay? Number 2, I don't have a problem with politicians. My ex-husband thinks I'm a politician. I don't know where he got that from. But I was talking to Damon this morning about a certain politician. Because I don't like to, I don't like to clown people too much unless I just have to. But a certain politician was asking for the protesters to, what did he say? He didn't say focus. He said, channel your energy. And, to stop looting and destroying stuff. I guess that was the inference. Don't nobody want to hear that. How you gonna tell? I have a girlfriend who said it best. I'm gonna read it to y'all. I asked her if I could quote her. Her name is, we call her Missy. When Missy, me and her were talking about it, and when Missy heard him say that, Lord, I can't never find stuff I'm looking for. But when Missy heard him say that, she said, you cannot give people an ethereal answer to a tangible hurt. Mm-hmm. People are hurting. Mm-hmm. We are traumatized. Mm-hmm. We have been abused. And now you want to stand in front of a podium and tell us to channel our damn energy.
Right.
Where are we going to channel it to? This is like the dam that burst. This is like the soda can that you shook up and then you opened it up. We have been channeling, how much more channeling we going to do? I'm not advocating crime. I'm not advocating destroying anything or stealing. But what I am saying is they got a damn good right to be mad. And I would never tell anyone, don't be mad. I want you to channel your energy into something more constructive. No, you feel how you feel. Because I know I'm feeling how I'm feeling right now. I was in tears a few days ago. I couldn't stop crying. I had to call one of my girlfriends because this hurts and I am tired. Thank you.
I just want to go to Lorraine real quick. I want to I've written editorials as what happens, I'm sure with Damon as well. We get invitations to speak on several different news organizations, especially white organizations. I'm going to be on Lisa Wexler's show in Connecticut and on tomorrow or Tuesday. And Bob Marone and all these other places. And I have written a couple of editorials for Black Westchester explaining this, and I'm actually working on a book right now. And the title is White People Can't Comprehend the Deadly Consequences of Being Black. And it was an editorial I wrote, and it was explaining, because the question that always gets asked to me, and probably Damon as well, and you too, Sonia, why are they so angry? Why are they so frustrated? Why can't they get over it? What are they complaining about? And then I had to write another editorial to answer this one. Why are the youth so angry? I mean, if you take a young person that's 25 or younger, let's say, in his lifetime, he has seen all he's seen was adults tell him or her to do it the right way. Let the system handle it. And all these situations happen. Then when they was around 8 or so, we had a black president, and they heard all the older people say, oh, it's going to be different now. We got a black president. Rappers made records about, oh, my president is black. More killings happened. Situation like Kenneth Chamberlain here. Then you had Eric Garner. It was on videotape. That's what they said we wanted, right? They ruled it, Emmy ruled it as a homicide. That's what we said we wanted, right? Slam dunk, right? Oh, let the system do what it's supposed to do. Bow. Nobody goes to jail. Except for the individual who shot the cell phone video. They see plenty of their comrades, their people their age being killed, plus what they see in their own communities. They see us, the generation that's telling them to calm down, not holding it down for them, not bringing them the things that we say is going to happen. At some point, they're not listening to us anymore. And they're like, if you're not going to do it, we're going to do it, and they want to be heard. I quote this in my book, and unfortunately, because it is, every black Negro peon on MSNBC quoted it this week too. But Martin Luther King said, the riot is the language of the unheard. They're unheard. They're going unheard. They're not having it no more. I'm not talking about the what you call, Damon, the protest profiteers. I'm not talking about those. I'm not talking about those provocateurs that come in here to amp things up and to create, things so Trump can declare martial law and have military in the street, and that may be coming. And that's what he wants. I'm talking about the people that are tired, and that's what you're seeing. If what happened to George Floyd represents what's been happening. They've had their knee on our neck forever, and we're tired, and that's what you're seeing right now. There's been a knee on the neck of the black community, the black people, forever, since we've been in this country, and they're fed up. Now, I'm not advocating the violence, and I'm watching right now people running out of a sneaker store with boxes of sneakers. I'm not advocating all that. But like Chris Rock said, while I don't condone it, I understand.
Absolutely. No, listen, I understand it. I get it. But I also understand is that we have to attack the situation for what it is, because we've been dealing with these situations from an emotional standpoint.
Absolutely. We
haven't been dealing with this situation from a logical standpoint. And this is like, for it to be at this point is because we didn't do, as a community of black people, as black leadership, as black elected officials, we have not done,
as black law enforcement,
and black law enforcement too, absolutely, we haven't done what we were supposed to do when we are put in these positions of power. So black law enforcement punks out because they want to get a check, and they want to get good positions, and they want to rise up the ladder and make some money. Black pastors punk out because they don't want to tell the black elected officials the truth, because they're trying to get grant money and get too close to Caesar, right?
Yes.
Okay, black politicians punk out because they're not getting their campaign money and all that other money from the black community. They're getting them from people on the outside. And then when we vote for them, they get in and they don't do what they're supposed to do. It's inexcusable to have a black city with any black elected officials and you have police brutality in the city that you have a black politician. I don't care where you're at. And then it's really inexcusable for us to vote Democrat all the goddamn time, and they don't do nothing as a Democratic Party, but yet we as black people have to be good, loyal Negroes and always vote row A all the way. And we get nothing from it, absolutely nothing. What have they done to stop this? Nothing. They haven't done a goddamn thing, because it's still happening. So what are you going to do now, politicians? What are you going to do now, preachers? Are you going to say, we got to pray this away? Absolutely not. The hell with lift every voice and sing. People want to lift every fist and swing now. That's what they want to do now. And you're powerless to change their condition. And that's the outrage on the streets. Powerless.
Real quick, you put out a challenge. Talk about the challenge briefly, and then Lorraine, I didn't get a chance to talk. Talk about your challenge.
Well, we sent out. We put out a challenge to elected officials that they need to pass police criminality laws. When an officer that is trained and certified by the state goes in the community and violate policies and procedures and training that leads to injury or death, it should be a crime. No less than a crime. The problem is this: when you could violate policy and procedure, but that doesn't make it a crime in states.
Like Eric Garner situation.
Eric Garner, and that's what Marilyn Mosley ran into when she tried to bring those officers up in the Freddie Gray case. So we need actual state laws that define what a crime is when police officers do that. So it won't be no ifs, ands, or buts about it, and they don't have to say, oh my God, we gotta try to get this and we gotta try to get that. Maybe it's murder. No, maybe it's manslaughter. No, maybe it's this. No. The state law says what you did was a crime. It led to a death. Your job fired you because they said you didn't adhere to your policies and procedures and training. Now we're charging you. Simple as
So
that.
I know Lorraine is getting ready to speak, but let me just jump in on that piece real quick.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have union involvement on that.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
we calling
I want
them
the
out
unions to
too.
do that.
What y'all gonna do? Y'all think that this is okay? You putting up
Exactly.
roadblocks and challenges and everything to keep us from being able to hold police officers accountable. So they need to be dealt with as well.
Oh no, absolutely. And you know how you
Because
do
if
that?
not, the laws are not gonna pass.
No, you know how you do that? You say, you know what? Not only are we gonna put it in the law, we're gonna put it in the collective bargaining agreement. Now, if you don't like that, then you just don't get a raise. See, we know police officers will sell their firstborn for a 3% raise. You understand what I'm saying? I've been in this thing for 30 years. I know how it goes. You go 4, 5, 6 years without a raise, but the politician has to have the testicular fortitude to stand his ground on it and say, look, this is what we want in the contract. If they violate, they're fired. This is what we want in the contract. And if you don't want to do it, then you know what? Then we just won't have a contract. And then stand on it. Have a press conference about it. Let the people know. The reason why this police department doesn't have a contract is because they don't want to be accountable to you. That's how you say it. See, but they don't want to because they just want to be lazy in their position when it comes to police oversight. They don't want to be labeled anti-police. See, but then we need to start labeling these politicians anti-people. That's what we have to do. We have to start changing the narrative on this. Changing the narrative. Yeah. You have some cities that have paid out millions and millions and millions. New York City has paid out some smaller states' budgets in lawsuits and judgments for police brutality cases. And yet you still negotiate a raise with the union that defended the racist criminal cop. Miss me with that. And you're gonna try to justify that? So the cop will kill my son? And then I still have to pay his salary out of my tax dollars? Miss me with that. See, we got this all twisted. We got it all wrong. And until the politicians stand up and stand their ground on this, more young Black men and women are going to be killed by police.
Hold on. I think I got it.
We
What
can't
the hell is
hear
that? Applaud?
Yeah.
you.
Amazing.
Lorraine, go ahead.
All right. Now, I need you, Damon. I need you, AJ. And I need you, Miss Sonia, to hear me. This is coming from another perspective. I'm a mother of a Black son. My son does not identify as Puerto Rican. As a matter of fact, he goes by Black Griff. He will not identify as Puerto Rican. He's an activist. I've seen my son on CNN with a bullhorn. I've opened up the Daily News. There was my son. And I've gotten that phone call in the middle of the night that said, Mom, I'm in jail, but I'm okay. Because he was fighting for his people that he considers the Black people. Today, I saw a whole bunch of young youth, Black youth, that wanted to do a peaceful protest, that wanted their voices to be heard, and it was hijacked by white people. And they led him astray. They led him to the fucking highway. They led him to close to Court County. They led him there. They led him to the 3rd precinct. They did not have solutions for them. They used them as bait. They used them as bait, and it hurts me. It hurts me because I've got 7 mugshots, and every single one of them I'm proud of. I'm proud of. But let me tell you something. I'm not,
Hey, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
I'm proud of every single one of them, and I'll take another mugshot.
Exactly.
But the last one was pretty ugly, so next time I'll make sure I smile. But Miss Sonia, I need you to help me, help my people in Yonkers. We've got their attention. What do we do now? Help me, help them.
When you say your people, you mean the community or the politicians?
No. Okay. Here's the disclaimer.
Like, wait a minute.
Here's the disclaimer. I'm a politician because I was a city council member, but for 25 years, I worked for Republican administrations, and I oversaw the Office of Human Rights and the Office of Constituent Services. I took care of our people. That was my job. Nobody else was willing to take it on. I did it. But we got youth, we got people. Right now, there's a protest scheduled Tuesday in the city of Yonkers, and the politicians are gonna come on. The mayor's on board. The police commissioner, which I must say is very attentive. He's gonna be there. And I've not been part of the whole big process. There's like 20 not-for-profits, churches, and everything. Everybody's involved. It's supposed to be a big thing. I have been talking to the people behind the scenes that are organizing it. And one of the things I asked them was, do you know that there is a decree with the Justice Department in the city of Yonkers regarding police brutality that went into effect in 2017? Do you know the 3 organizers were not even aware of it? I told them that's the basis of this whole thing. If you're gonna go with demands, you gotta know what you're demanding. So I've been working with them. I've been advising them behind the scenes and everything like that. But now that we got their attention, what's the next step?
Well, first of all, if Yonkers has a consent decree, they need
Yes, it does.
You need to find out what the parameters of the consent decree are.
Oh, yes.
Because-
I know all of them. I know all of
Okay.
them.
And did you share that information with them?
Absolutely. I sent it all. I sent every single document I could think of. No, they were very grateful, and I told them, do your homework. Do your homework, because if you're going to stand in that podium and you're going to demand justice, you got to know what you're talking about.
And there's no better way to demand justice than to piggyback on what's already been asked for.
Yeah. For
Okay.
example,
Exactly.
Exactly.
for example, Damon, this is interesting. Damon, this is interesting. There was a meeting yesterday, a Zoom meeting, 20 people, all black pastors in Yonkers, not-for-profits, the mayor, the police commissioner. In the consent decree, Miss Sonia, it states that they need 35 hours of training for police brutality. You know what, Damon? The meeting yesterday, they asked the people that did not know that I sent them the information. They did ask. They said, can we have training for our police officers? Mayor said there's not enough money in the budget for that.
Oh, well, okay, so.
Tell
There
them
you go.
Okay,
Now, go ahead, son.
okay.
Okay, so
I see this stuff. I
Let-
see it.
okay,
Let us talk.
so here's the great thing about consent decrees. The Department of Justice will give you money. There are resources to help you meet the goals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay? So to say that you don't have enough money means that either you're not telling the truth, or that you don't know what you're doing, or you don't know how to reach out to find out. They expect you to find those resources. That's an expectation.
Yes. Yes.
And one of the first places I would start is the Department of Justice.
Because you can always go back and revisit it, and you could say, you know what? This is not happening. This is not happening.
We don't have enough money.
Yeah.
If you say we don't have enough money, they're going to be like, okay, you better find it or we'll give it to you.
Yep. But you know what? There's a real easy solution to this too. Because from what I understand in this meeting, the YWCA said, we do that training. We do that training in Yonkers. Well, you know what? I'm calling out the YWCA in Yonkers. You was formed based out of racism. Okay. Well, then let's work with the community. Provide that training to the police. Or if they don't have the money, provide it. Do your part and let's heal. Do your part. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. And you know I'm gonna be a target, Damon, after this, but I don't give a fuck.
No,
I don't give a fuck. I'm tired.
It's nothing about. I mean, look, it's nothing new about Yonkers. It's nothing new about the history of the police department in Yonkers. You know, I mean, it's nothing new. So, you know, I was when I was Northeast Region President of the National Black Police Association, we was battling. We was battling in Yonkers. And a matter of fact, when Marcus Jones was I think it was Marcus. When he was the president, we had a whole big meeting in Yonkers, and they didn't, and even from the old consent decree. Now, I mean, I'm not even talking the new one, right? I'm talking the old.
So this is another one.
This is the second one. What she's talking about is the second one. From the first consent decree, they were supposed to hire a certain number of black officers, which they never did. So the community got jerked on the first the first consent decree. So now we have a second one here over the same police department, and even from the first one, the second one made them wear name tags. Do you understand me? You had police officers after 2000, after the year 2000, not wearing name tags. So you know, and you had to get a consent decree. They had to go to the people in Yonkers had to go to the federal government to get the police department to put on goddamn name tags.
Okay, but you know what, David?
Before you do that, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
My question, and I'm sure for some of the people listening to you law enforcement professionals, where do we go? Okay, if there's a consent decree, is there a part that's like a punishment for not following this decree? And if there is, how do we, because if there was a first one they didn't follow and then nothing happened to them and then they got a second one, what's stop them from not doing that and only get a third one? Is there a punishment aspect to this if you don't follow? And if so, how do we implement that?
Okay, this is what you do.
I want to hear. Go ahead.
I know the answer, AJ. Come on.
That's what
Go
needs
ahead,
to be done.
Lorraine.
Go ahead.
The answer is you go back to the courts, you go back to the judge, and you say, this was in the consent decree and it's not being followed. And the court will go back to Yonkers and say, you need to get this done now. It's that easy. It's
so
that easy. We're
so
fighting, we're doing this. Go back to the court.
So what you're telling me, over the course of 2 decades or whatever, the elected officials have not done this in Yonkers. No
I can't
elected
say
official.
I cannot
I'm saying,
Absolutely, because if the consent decree.
I don't know. I can't.
and no leadership. Nobody in leadership in Yonkers has done this.
Look,
Okay, but Mueller is trying. Mueller is trying. We need people like Black.
Stop.
We need people like Black Rochester to tell him, yo, bro, you're not doing it right.
Stop. David, go ahead.
Yeah.
If you're the commissioner, you make the policy. I don't give a fuck about a try. Right?
Okay.
You are the man to make the policy. Write that motherfucker down. Give a 5-day motherfucking read. This is how we run in our police department from now on. That trying bullshit. See, I don't want to hear we're trying.
Hold them accountable. I'm not saying. I'm saying hold them accountable.
Listen to what I'm saying. Listen to what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Fuck the try shit.
Okay.
See, we're listening to leaders that are put in position, right, to write the legislation and put it forth, and they're telling us they're trying. What kind?
Okay, so then it falls on the mayor too. So then it falls on the mayor too. I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything. I'm with you. Then it falls on the mayor too.
It's absolutely right. Make it happen.
Okay. But here's the thing. If it's the Department of Justice's job to monitor the consent decree.
That's where I'm getting to. That's where I was going.
Okay, but it's
wait. Let her finish. Let her finish.
So they should periodically send teams of people to make sure you're meeting all your parameters. And if you are not, there should be consequences. Now, that's also political. It depends. Like, for instance, right now, do you really think that there's a lot of follow-up on consent decrees?
No.
With our current national administration.
Not happening here.
Absolutely
it's
not.
Not happening here.
Okay.
No.
Well, actually, to follow up on that, homeboy that was the first attorney general, remember, he dismissed all the dissent decrees.
Yeah.
Jeff Sessions, yeah.
So if you're expecting some kind of fallout from people not meeting the parameters of their consent decrees, it's probably not going to happen right now. It's going to depend on who's in the White House.
Exactly.
Okay, so what do we?
Oh, and then there's one more thing, and I'm gonna have to go because I got another call at 7.
Right.
But federal money, police departments get money.
Exactly.
And that can be one of the if you violate the parameters, you might not get your money.
Exactly.
But there's other thing. I wish I could have time to talk about it more. Lorraine, it was nice meeting you. AJ,
I love
Damon,
you. Thank you. Let's do
see
this
y'all
again.
on the next call.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Later.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Yeah, because that's what I wanted to know. Like, what can the average person? There's people listening to this, and there's people not in law enforcement like me. Like, I hear you got these consent decrees, and they were in place before Trump, and nothing was happening before Trump. So I got the Trump administration is not going to do it, but what was happening before Trump that these things weren't.
People dropped the ball. I played a role in getting that consent decree, myself and Karen Edmondson.
Okay.
She worked hard to make sure she got all those complaints and
Not zero.
Yeah. Right. But once Karen Edmondson left the NAACP dropped the ball. I don't care.
It's soft. They're soft now, Damon.
They
soft.
dropped the ball because you have to follow up on the consent decree, and you yourself, you know, if you're going to expect the government, right, because they say, oh, everything's okay, and like you said, whoever's politically connected, whoever's this, whoever's that, yo, we're gonna let this slide, and then Trump gets in, and then it's a wrap, right? You know, because nobody cares. But at the end of the day, right, the people right now, if any elected official, and this is just not Yonkers, I'm talking any elected official,
Right.
if you really mean what you say, then legislate, right? If you're not putting forth legislation for police oversight and accountability of their actions, right, within the department policy and within the city law, and then within state law that it's a crime, then you ain't saying nothing. Then you're just appealing to my emotions. I don't need nobody else to appeal to my emotion. I got a wife. That's the only person I need to appeal to my goddamn emotions, right? I don't need no politician to do that. So we as a people have to change the narrative and start talking law. What is the goddamn law to make sure that these officers will be fired and will go to jail? Laws. That's it. Anything else, any other conversation is futile, right? When you talk to a politician, what are you going to do with the laws? Are you going to propose laws? Are you going to pass laws? City council people, what type of laws are you going to do to hold your police accountable? That's it. That's it. Right? There's not even a civilian complaint review board in none of the goddamn cities. So what are you marching? What are you marching with these kids for? And these kids can't even file a complaint and feel safe. See, this is the hypocrisy in politics that has come to a head that has to stop. But we have to stop too as a people falling for the okie doke every time. Because we in our feelings. We in our feelings.
Okay, so Damon.
Real quick, let me get in because we have the other lady supposed to come in at 7. And we got like 7 minutes.
I gotta get off at 7.
Right, and I wanna at least address and acknowledge some of the people. There's been a lot of people tuned in. My alarm on my other phone is going off.
Okay, while you looking for
Here
that,
you go.
Okay.
So Nancy, thank you, Nancy Cater Maldonado, for tuning in. Alex Harrison said Yonkers police beat up some girl the other day. We've been talking about that. Lisa Best said blessings. Blessings everybody from Lisa Best. Karen Judge Best tuned in. Terry Watson said because of the delay from the DA, the perception of rioting is going to equal results. We talked about that. Had they had the fortitude to do what the police department did within 24 hours and charge those officers, a lot of what is happening in Minnesota and then around the country would not have happened. They could have prevented this, and they did not. And then we had no leadership from the national level on down. Shout out to Chief Khalil tuned in, Nas Duncan tuned in, Sharman Leon Evans.
Tell the chief to stop reporting on Yonkers if he ain't know what he's talking about.
Okay, that's another conversation. Not right now. Shout out to Sharman Leon Evans, Cleveland police officer. She's going to be on part 3 of how to police the Black community, which is this coming Friday. She said, hey guys, good to see you again. We just had Sonia Pruitt Wiggins, the National Black Police Association president, that was just talking. Michelle Shells Lopez was tuned in. Michelle Reed, thank you. Hey, from the ATL, what's going on? Alex Harris said a lot of times things don't change because of social natural selection. Lorraine Moneypenny is tuned in. Terry Watson agreed with a couple of things you said. Lisa Best said they changed the narrative from arrest to charge all the officers to 45 tweeting when the looting starts, the shooting starts, they are changing the narrative, changing the storyline and setting us up for slaughter. Alex Harrison said a lot of minority ethnicities want either closer alliance with the dominant at the expense of blacks, and the message gets spread to the youth for them is not as bad when the person is black. Karen Cole's tuned in. Karen Cole said, hi, AJ, I agree with your viewpoint. There has been a foot on the neck of black people for centuries. I stand by that. Terry Watson said, I'm meeting with our officials on Thursday to start accepting that challenge, Damon.
Thank you.
Allison Harrison said, blacks are the only ones held accountable for their actions. Karen Cole said, we need a universal definition of what constitutes excessive force. Somewhat of what Damon was talking about, but we need legislation because again, we have Michelle, hold on. I see that you're in the waiting area. Michelle, hold on. Again, we need legislation because in the NYPD's policy, after, what was it, Amadou Diallo, one of those situations in the 90s, they made it a policy that they barred the chokehold, and even though what's his name Eric Garner, it was against police policy, but was not against the law.
But that's not excessive force. What we have, at least in New York State, is what they call the continuum of force. You're supposed to use as a law enforcement officer, whatever force is against you, you're supposed to use the same amount of force, and then it rises. It goes from physical, right, to deadly force. So if you're using deadly force against physical force, then that's excessive force. You understand what I'm saying? But now, if you look at the case, if you look at the recent case, right, he was using deadly force against no force because he was cuffed and on the ground, right? He was cuffed and on the ground. So there is a training aspect called the continuum of force policy. So once the physical force stops, you don't jump to deadly force, right? Because that's not part of the continuum of force. So we have to understand. I gotta go.
Okay. So I'm gonna read the rest of the comments. I'm also going to bring in our next interviewer, our next guest. It's Michelle Caruso. She's running against AOC. But let me read the rest of the comments. And I hope that answered your question, Karen Cole, to a certain point. Shauna said she loved the comment. Testicle of fortitude. Lisa Best said yes. Janelle Brighton tuned in. Ty Hardy was tuned in. Janelle said, "What is it going to take to stop the killing?" That's what
hello, Michelle. I'm sorry, I have to leave. I have to do an interview with ABC and CBS. So I gotta go.
Me, it's your show, so you do it.
Right. If you can, Damon, get the video so we can put it up or whatever. So,
well, I have no clue.
No, whenever they send the link, whenever they post whatever, just send it to me.
Okay.
All right. If you hold on one more second, Michelle, I'm just going to read the rest of the comments from the people who tuned in. We had Sonia, Pruitt, Wiggins, who's the president of the National Black Police Association. We were dealing a little bit with what's going on nationally. And my lovely co-host, Lorraine Lopez, is dealing with what's going on locally in the city of Yonkers currently right now. So a couple more comments. DJ Etc. What's going on? He tuned in. Daniel Terry tuned in. Ken Bright tuned in. Rabab, how you doing, Rabab? She said hello. Charmin Leon Evans, again, Cleveland police officer. She said consent decree. She's and agreeing with the consent decree. She said there's a judge assigned in a consent decree. Lorraine, Susie's watching. Shout out to Susie, your sister.
I love you, Susie.
Shout out to Leda Castillo. I always mispronounce your last name and I pronounce, I'm sorry. Nancy Kata Maldonado.
Hello, sis.
She said, thank you all for always being supportive. Brian Harad's tuned in. Guy Harris is tuned in. And again,
Brian's done a great job.
We are switching lanes right now.
Before we switch, I need to say something,
okay,
AJ.
We are getting ready to switch lanes right now. And this is an important conversation. And I have to do this balancing that, because normally when we have situations like this, we would bounce the candidate running and we would just continue the whole show about this. But there's also a primary that's very instrumental coming up in less than a month. So, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to so balance the act. There is way more that needs to be said that can be said within that hour. And again, we will continue this conversation because this is what we do. So, Lorraine, last words about the last topic.
Okay, before we switch up, I need to speak about Yonkers.
Briefly, yes, briefly, then we can continue.
Okay, briefly. We got a lot of protests going on right now. I want to be clear that I support the Yonkers Police Commissioner. I support him, and I support the mayor, because there are protests going on. They are listening. They are willing to listen. Now that we've got their attention, let's focus on what do we change and how do we heal. That's all I'm saying. And reach out to me, Lorraine Lopez, reach out to AJ if you want to be part of this Yonkers movement. But don't go out there protest. Don't go out there and riot and not have a demand. The demands will be met. They're listening. Don't go out there just for the bullshit. Go out there now that you got their attention. Okay, you wanted to work together? Let's work together. Let's do this.
Last words on all of that.
That's all I gotta say.
That's Lorraine's position. I hold all police commissioners accountable. And I want to say that I also do agree with Lorraine on the fact that we go back into the marching, the protesting, which is the beginning of all this, and then, you know, all the other stuff on top of that. And we go back and we look at people like Martin Luther King Jr. as the what we pull upon to justify our marching and stuff. But Martin Luther King, all of his march and all of his protest was to change legislation. Like, there was a plan. Like, when they stayed off the bus, the plan was so that it was no longer illegal for them to sit wherever they wanted to sit on the bus. They stayed off the bus for over a year and a half. Then people didn't get to make it the rule because it was the right thing to do. They was about to go bankrupt if they went any longer. Yeah. So it was like, let them sit anywhere they want, just get them back on the bus. You understand what I'm saying? There was other things like the Voting Rights Act and the other things that were passed through, but he was also working alongside the president with a list of demands. And he was like, you know, I can't keep telling these people to calm down and you're not giving anything. And he was like, you know, and he was going back and forth. And there was a list of demands. Now, he didn't get hardly probably close to a third of what they asked for, a tenth of what they asked for, but he was able to get something. But the point is, though, you can shut the Brooklyn Bridge down today. People don't go to work tomorrow. So you inconvenienced a few people, and for people that don't live in the area, they don't care. As long as the bridge is free tomorrow so they can go to work, they don't care right now. So there has to also be a demand, a list of demands. You should know what the heads of these organizations that are doing the protests should already be working on a list of, so what we would like. Not you talking about what we don't have, we already know all that. Talking about what's wrong, we already know that. Bringing those things up and using this to bring light to that is great, but there has to be or else. To quote the late, great Hafiz Muhammad, who's been on our show several times, rest in peace, from the Nation of Islam, there has to be or else.
That's what I'm saying.
We want you to do these things or else. And if there is no or else, which means we're going to vote you out, we're going to do whatever. And to quote, I wanted to quote and I wanted to quote Killer Mike was put out a great he did a great speech for the city of Atlanta. And Michelle, if you give me 1 second, I want to end with the.
You take as long as you want, and we can continue this conversation. I'm happy to talk about.
Right. I'm going to ask you what you think, but I want to get. I want to definitely get this this one quote in, because I think, and I played the video again. The video is on Black Westchester, and I will share the link for all of you so that you can watch the video in full itself, the 8-minute video. But what he said is, yes, I'm mad as hell. I woke up wanting to see the world burn yesterday. I'm tired of seeing Black men die. But even though he was mad as hell, he urged the need to hold elected officials and politicians' feet to the fire. He told those who were angry to plot, plan, strategize, organize, and mobilize, and hold their politicians' feet to the fire. He said, it's time to beat up the prosecutors you don't like at the voting booth. It's time to hold the mayoral office accountable, the chiefs and the deputy chiefs and the commissioners, I will add. He said, this is what we have to do. We have to use our bully pulpit. We have to use our people. We are the reason that these people are in office, because we voted for them. The police department, and let me be clear, I shouldn't have to say this 6 years later. We're going on our 6-year anniversary. I should no longer have to say this, but we are not anti-police. We are anti-bad actors and people who use their authority to abuse our communities. And I don't care what you look like, because there's Black police that we've gone after, because some of them are worse than the white police. So this is not a white police thing, and this is not an all police thing. But you all know people who work in your departments who should not be in your departments. And we need you to start stepping up. This is what Sonia said. She said the one thing she hasn't heard from any of her counterparts was, if I see somebody doing my department, it's going to be me and them, or I'm going to do this about it. Like, she didn't hear that. She heard every one of her people around her say, this is a shame. This shouldn't happen. I'm angry. But no one said, if this happened in this department, there's going to be something, and we're going to put an end to it. You know what I'm saying? And that's what we need, our good law enforcement to do this, and we need to get these bad apples out. Because in any scenario of the bad apple scenario, the bad apple does ruin the bunch. It could be a rotten apple will make everything around it rotten. So we need, you see, and lastly about that, like the sister in, I think, Buffalo, who was on our panel, How to Police the Black Community last, part 2, she stood up and she stopped her fellow officer from excessive force, and she was fired. And the community should be behind her, because that's what we're asking our police to do. And when we have one that does it, we don't have their back. So that's why others probably don't do it. You understand what I'm saying? So we as a community need to have the back of those who do have that will go forth and do that. You understand what I'm saying? And we need more officers to do that. Now, with that, I want to introduce our candidate. Wait. Lorraine, I'm on a time constraint, and we can still talk, but I have to introduce our candidate. We have a candidate running.
Hey, okay. All right. I'm with that.
We have a candidate
but there's
running.
Stuff going on in the office that I still need to be addressed.
Lorraine, and it's time. Let me host the show, please. And we have a candidate running for Lorraine. We have a candidate running in the New York's 14th Congressional District, which is the Bronx and Queens, am I?
Yeah, exactly.
And she's just so happens what made her even more intriguing to me. She's running against the often talked about AOC, who even the president talks about every 5 minutes. They part of the squad and all of this other stuff, and people have talk about she is taking over the party, and she's even been discussed in discussions that if Bernie won the nomination, that she was possibly his vice presidential pick. Running against someone, and she does have a lot of media behind her, and there is some love behind her, and there's probably on the other side of things too. Running against someone like that, I wanted to meet the person who wanted to run against her and ask you why. So I want to introduce to the people before politics, Michelle Caruso-Cabrera, and I'm so thank you for having your name behind you so I can read your last name properly and not mess it up. And I'm gonna keep it real because I've been calling you MCC. I've been calling you MCC, and you know.
They've been calling me MCC. My previous job, they called me MCC for 21 years.
Okay,
So,
okay.
Yeah.
So why are you running? Why are you picking this time to run? And why are you running against AOC?
Because AOC is MIA.
Okay.
She is bad for the Times. She is bad for New York, and she is bad for our neighborhoods. She threw away 25,000 jobs, and we are going through now an economic crisis after the health crisis. And imagine if we had those 25,000 jobs that she pushed out, we would have a leg up. People could start talking about going back to work.
Are we talking about the Amazon?
We're talking about the Amazon jobs, yeah.
Okay.
And then she voted against $75 billion for hospitals. She voted against $25 billion for coronavirus testing. She voted against hundreds of billions of dollars for the Paycheck Protection Program, which would keep people employed. So she says she cares about people, and yet when given the opportunity to do anything, she works against us. She works against my neighbors. She works against my community. I am just the opposite. I am for jobs. I am for helping deliver healthcare resources, helping people get back to work after this terrible, terrible pandemic that has just wrought so much. The stuff I see every day. We have modern day breadlines here, AJ and Lorraine. It's terrible. People are desperate. And what does she do? She works against them. That's why I'm in this race, to work for people, and I will be present. She always complained about our predecessor here, that he didn't drink our water, didn't breathe our air, didn't educate his children here. But remember this, at the height of the crisis, and she herself admits her constituents were the hardest hit in the entire country. At the height of the crisis, Congress wasn't in session. She didn't come home. She stayed in her apartment in DC with a Whole Foods in the lobby. And I bring that up because it was really hard to get food here. If you had the money to go to a supermarket, you had to wait hours to get in because of the social distancing requirements. Does this sound like somebody who's present, who promised she was going to be here more often than her predecessor? And at the moment when we needed her most, she didn't come home? I will be here.
Now, I want to say two things. We try our best in races to bring both candidates, or in other races, as many of the candidates in the Democratic primary. And we are reaching out to her, and I'm sure that we promoted this, so I'm sure someone in her camp or one of her supporters are watching this. So we just need that campaign to contact us so we can talk to her and let her present her side. Now, I will say, that being said, what I found astonishing, because I did not really monitor that district much. We have so much going on, as you see how passionate Lorraine is about Yonkers, Mount Vernon, and all the cities in Westchester, plus what's going on nationally and stuff. I was not watching that district. But once I started to promote that you were coming on, let's just say, I'm not going to say it was overwhelming, and I'm not going to say it was just everyone, but there was more people than I thought that started to complain good because she hasn't been here, or some of the things that you said, but on various other, saying it different ways in their own way and stuff. And I was surprised. I was surprised to hear that, because I only really knew what I saw on MSNBC and what we see on the news and the things that she's doing and the things that she spoke up on. So
all you friends in the Bronx were telling you about how she never opened a constituent services office in her district in the Bronx. She never opened one. And she
And
did
Wow.
I saw Lorraine. I saw Lorraine slide.
AJ,
I saw her light. I saw
speak on
her eyes light up because Lorraine used to be. She actually was the first Latino city councilwoman in Yonkers, and that's what she did. So go ahead, Lorraine.
It wasn't, I didn't do that under the auspices of the city council. I also worked for 25 years under 2 Republican administrations, and I oversaw the Office of Human Rights and the Department of Constituent Services.
Good for you.
Let me just say this. Congratulations on your salmon.
Oh, thank you.
She got endorsed by Sam. I don't know, what was it, yesterday or the day before?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
And I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna be honest with you. I've done my research. I'm following you. I see what you've done. Right now, currently, I'm a Democrat. And I became a Democrat, but it was with protests. It was with protests under the Trump administration, because I still have some Republican values in me. And I was late a lot with you. I was a city councilwoman in the city of Yonkers and all that other good stuff. But I kind of see that Ms. Cortez, she got into office, and this is as real as I can be. She's whining. She's a crybaby. It's all about, oh my God, isn't it? What are your solutions? I honestly can relate more with you than I can with her. As a woman, as a Latino woman,
Thank you.
I can relate more with you than her. If we come on if she comes on the show, I'll tell her too.
We have one comment already from somebody I know. My cousin. This is called my cousin. This is my sister's, my brother-in-law's cousin, but my cousin. His name is Richard Davis, and he said, "Thank you, MCC, for informing us more here. I live in the Bronx." And Rich, if you have any questions for her, please type them and we will ask her. So I want to give you a chance, even though we moved on from the thing, from what's going on nationally and locally with the George Floyd situation, what is the temperature of your district about all of that? Are there any protests or anything? Is there any? I mean, I'm hearing about Brooklyn and Manhattan more. I'm not really hearing about what's going on in the Bronx or Queens at all. If there's any uprisings, if there's any damages to police, I'm not hearing.
I've been attacked by COVID.
So can you speak?
Yeah. So there were peaceful protests in Jackson Heights yesterday. It started at Diversity Plaza, and then they marched. And my understanding is people stayed late into the night. But you're right, the biggest action was in Brooklyn, and there's another event happening this afternoon. I will say that, like the rest of the country, people are very angry, so angry. We watched a man die on camera at the hands of police. And to the point that you were making earlier, Lorraine, when you were talking about, will anybody else say, don't do that? There were other officers there, and they didn't tell him to stop.
Right, and they have a duty to intervene.
They have a duty to intervene.
That's why they were fired for not, acting on their duty to intervene.
I attended Corona Congregational Church this morning via Zoom, just like this, and the Reverend there, Reverend Brantley, and because I'm mentioning his name, he did not endorse me. He allows anyone to come and speak who wants to address his congregation if they're running for office, and I was grateful for that. But he said something very sad and yet very eloquent that I thought was very appropriate. He said, our nation is at war with our soul, that we have this founding based on freedom and yet also on slavery, this dichotomy that we still live with today and drives so many problems that we have today. And we see them in the coronavirus with the healthcare pandemic hit Blacks and Latinos disproportionately, enormously compared to the rest of the population. And we can talk about, we all know the historical reasons why that would be. And then on top of that, the economic pandemic hits harder here. And then there's the permanent pandemic that our Black community feels, that our brown communities feel about racial injustice. Yeah. It's been going on for so long. So everything I'm hearing from you, I'm hearing from my neighbors, I'm hearing from my community here about how frustrated and angry they are about what happened, and they want accountability. Your point about the ask, what do you want? Okay, so we have this problem. I thought Governor Cuomo had a great point today, I don't know if you watched him, but an independent authority to investigate these kind of matters rather than an internal review is important. Someone outside and independent is a first step to making sure that justice happens. And I applaud him for telling Attorney General Letitia James she's got to come back in 30 days with an investigation analysis of what's been happening in the last couple of days here when it comes to the violence and what's been happening with some of the disturbing videos we saw related to the police. So that's an ask, an independent authority to look into these situations.
Damon had to go, and I'm posting, and I think I sent it to you, but if not, I will send it to you. He actually posted a challenge to elected officials to pass police criminality laws. Richard Davis also mentioned that we need a change in legislation. I'll make sure that you see it specifically, but
sure.
for the question, if elected, and with the climate of what we just came, what would you do as far as, see, we discussed policy against legislation. Is NYPD policy to ban the chokehold, but it's not against the law. So then he didn't go to jail. What would you do if elected to help with legislation to criminalize that, police criminal?
Decriminalize it.
To criminalize the behavior, to legislate it.
I got you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, I think Cuomo's idea about an independent authority looking at these things is extremely important, so that way you can have accountability. What people want is accountability, right? And what's happened up until now is the local prosecutors, they always work very closely with police officers, and it's hard to know whether or not you can have someone who is not conflicted when they're investigating the situation. Mm-hmm. So an independent authority who looks at these things, I think, gets you closer to answers and to justice. The other thing, though, that is really important is economic justice. We got to get people back to work and into good jobs and a good education that helps people get good jobs. And that is one of the greatest frustrations that I hear about over and over again. For example, the loss of the Amazon jobs. People want to work.
I was going to ask you about that. Please speak on that. Yes, I was going to ask you about that.
But before we get there, though, I do want to get back to the actual question. Again, having an independent thing is good, but sure. It's not, there's nothing in that is against the law. Like, if you violate these procedures, it is against the law. Then automatically you can be charged with that law, and this is what will happen to you if you violate these things. That's what's the missing part, because we can keep talking, and Cuomo did already do the independent thing and made the AG's office to go in, and which he didn't need to do, because that is the job of the AG to investigate anything he wants. He does not need Cuomo's permission to do that. So that kind of was symbolism without substance. And that's what we're trying to get past. What about actual legislation? Because once it's a law, then we're talking, you broke the law.
Right. Well, there has to be something that's done that holds officers accountable when they commit the atrocities that we saw in Minneapolis, right? I mean, 3 officers not charged. So I would be open to looking at anything that would ensure that what happened there doesn't happen again, And the way that happens is they know that they're going to be held accountable to a standard that's going to be punishing to them. I mean, you have to get at the core of, when I watch the video, what is in his heart and in his mind that even after George Floyd is lying still, he keeps his knee there for 2 minutes and 43 seconds. What's happening there?
Well, he also had 19 previous offenses, one that led to the killing of someone and one that was an unfatal shooting of a man in his bathroom in his house, in the shot him in the stomach.
The shooting, 41 shots. 41 shots.
So if there had been accountability earlier, we wouldn't be here today.
Right. And that's why I read the thing in the beginning, if you watch this from the beginning, from Michelle Alexander, because, you know, what I'm not allowing on the show right now, I don't want anyone, candidate, elected official, anyone, to continue to tell us what they've been telling us over and over for the last. This is why the youth and everybody is upset right now, because in their lifetime, they have never seen, they've seen a system that has failed them again and again and again and again. And they've seen people, our generation was told by the previous generation, go and let the system handle it. Let the system handle it. And some of us actually listen to that. This next generation is not trying to hear that because it didn't work when we let the system listen. It hasn't worked their entire life. They have never seen what justice, they don't even know what justice looks like.
But then,
Let the candidate.
The one thing I would say that will be different with this generation is technology. We all
solutions.
We saw it. We saw it all happened, right? On camera.
We saw Eric Garner.
In the past, you had he said.
No, we saw Eric Garner.
Okay. All right. Point taken. You're right. Yes.
So what are we going to do different? What is different that our elected officials and our candidates running are going to bring us that we never had before? Because we can't do anything.
Accountable.
Huh?
Laws that hold them accountable.
And that's what I'm trying to get to. What would you do if you were elected? What could you do?
We've got to push laws that lead to accountability. And the details of that have to be worked out. But absolutely something that raises the bar beyond what's been happening, because what's been happening isn't good enough. And you're right, that's why people are so angry.
And also one last thing too, we didn't talk about, coronavirus decimated your district. Like coronavirus hit your district very, very, very hard. And for people now in the communities that hit the hardest, the Black community, the minority community, for them to come out in the middle of this, defying all social distance and everything.
It's serious.
This really means a lot to them.
Yeah.
But we're the ones dying, and we're still coming out like that in numbers. And I wanted to give you a chance because I know Queens is in your district, and Queens, the home of Donald Trump, his neighborhood he grew up in, got hit the hardest, and we don't hear him say nothing about it. But anyway, in the 5 boroughs, yes, and it got hit the hardest. So what can you speak a little bit about that, and what can we put in place? Because this won't be the last one. There will be another pandemic. What can we put in place to combat this better when we don't have national leadership? What can you do in your district?
Well, first of all, you've got to be present. You've got to help immediately when you can. Unlike my opponent who didn't come home, right? You're right, this district has been devastated. I drove by Elmhurst Hospital every day and was just devastated to see the lines, hundreds of people in line at the height of the crisis, trying to get tested, trying to get care. We have to deliver more financial resources to public health so that when we have a pandemic, people can get the help they need immediately. And that would be one way I would do that is to vote for the stimulus bill that she voted against. Vote for $75 billion for hospitals, vote for $25 billion for coronavirus testing. Don't fight with Nancy Pelosi, who's trying to help. Work with her, work within the party. We need unity at every level here. And we're seeing that, by the way, when we talked about the protests in Jackson Heights today, you can look on my Twitter feed, one of the police officers there walked with the protesters, took a knee with the protesters.
They've been kneeling, yes, they've been kneeling, yes.
In solidarity.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
Unity. That's why text unity to Caruso-Cabrera, because that's what we need right now. We need to all be working together. It's a matter of tone and attitude. My opponent is divisive and polarizing. Everything is about driving wedges between people, driving wedges in the party, and not actually working for people. Why else would you be the only Democrat who votes against a bill that has money for hospitals, that has money for healthcare?
I want to stop you. I want to interrupt real quick.
Come on, AJ, give me a chance.
Lorraine, let me host the show. Thank
What?
you. Let me host the show, please. Everybody on the screen is seeing, everybody on the screen is seeing another person, and I wanted to acknowledge this is Kenneth Chamberlain Jr. And since Damon, wait, since Damon couldn't be here, having Kenneth on is just like having Damon on. So,
this is like
Lorraine,
a birthday celebration for me.
So yes. Kenneth, while we did move forward, we have a candidate on. Michelle Caruso-Cabrera, she's running against AOC in the district that's for the Bronx and Queens. And one of the things I did just ask her before you tuned in, I don't know if you saw, was what Damon's challenge on passing legislation, that criminalizes this. The reason I bring this up, Michelle, Kenneth's father was killed by the White Plains Police Department, if you're not familiar with that. And
I saw you did an episode a couple of weeks ago about this.
Yes. And there has been no justice yet. So we're pushing legislation. And the White Plains Police Commissioner just got on, there was a rally in White Plains Friday, and with the camera in his face, he said the words that these kind of actions would never happen by his officers in the department that killed Kenneth Chamberlain's father.
He lied.
On a welfare call where they were supposed to be checking on his welfare because he hit his life alert button, and that is why the police were called. And they broke down his door, tased him, beanbagged him, and shot him, called him the N-word, and demeaned his military history, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this young man who is his son, who, unlike me, might be on some real F the police mentality right now, has started the Westchester Coalition for Police Reform and is working with police departments all over, you know what I'm saying, as well as victims, other victims of that. So Kenneth, if you have any questions for Michelle about criminal justice and what she would do if she got elected.
Well, yes, sir. Yeah. Yo, praise be to you, my brother. Praise be to you.
I was on another panel discussion, and it just ended, and I jumped over onto this one. So I was listening to some of the conversations, and I hear, the talk of accountability, and that's great, because, when we often talk about anything pertaining to the rule of law, there has to be accountability across the board as far as these police officers are concerned. Even in these courts, because some of these judges are pro-police and they're making decisions that are, in favor of the police, and they're not looking at the case in its entirety. A perfect example would be, in my father's case, we have actual audio where the police officers are on audio calling my father a nigger moments before they kill him. And we watch a judge throw it out in federal court and say that it's just a word, but it goes to the mindset of the officers. On a local level, on the county level, then district attorney was Janet DeFiore, she said she didn't deny that it was used, but she justified it. So she said it was used as a tactic to distract my father. You know, and I've often said that if Kenneth Chamberlain Sr.'s name was Kenneth Weinstein, Kenneth Cohen, and Kenneth Greenberg, it might be a different outlook. Why? Because we've seen a county become outraged when things have happened in the Jewish community. Example, swastikas painted on the Bronx River Parkway walkway, vandalizing the Holocaust Memorial, and you see all these elected officials come out, you see all these clergy come out, and they are all denouncing this, they're calling it a hate crime. But when a 68-year-old man is shot and killed in his home and called a nigger moments before it happened, there's no outrage. So the rule of law doesn't apply. And we know that we've seen a system of government in place that places no value on our lives. I often quote that all the time, and I say the government, its agents and officials are to be held to the same set of rules that enables a fair and functioning society. And until we see that, you're going to see this outrage. But on top of that, we see these narratives that are put out there. And see, my biggest thing is that if I lie or give false testimony, I'm charged for that.
Yeah.
These police officers, the same thing should happen when it's found out that they've given false testimony or written these false narratives, you know, trying to demonize individuals and make a victim look like a suspect. So, I mean, I really don't have too many questions because I don't want to go backwards and start asking you things that you may have already answered. But I will say that one of the things that I would like to see in terms of legislation is that when these officers are caught and it's found out that they lied giving testimony in crucial cases and things like this, that there needs to be some type of mandatory minimum sentence for these officers when this happens. That they need to be charged because you are held to a higher standard. You have the power of life and death in your hands. Okay, so you've been given that responsibility and you swore an oath. So you should be held to a higher standard. So again, I'm not gonna come in and start trying to go into all of these different things or start asking you, you know, all these questions.
But it's okay if you do. It's okay if you do.
Go ahead, Michelle. Go ahead, Michelle.
Well, first, Kenneth is my brother's name, so it's one of my favorite names. Thank you so much for telling me your story. And what I hear you saying, and I think is spot on, is that people behave differently if they know there are consequences to their actions. And what you want are for there to be consequences for actions. And historically, there haven't been consequences for actions. And I think that that's absolutely correct, what you're driving toward. Because once people know, oh, I could get in trouble for this, they may not do it,
Yes.
right? I mean, that's the simple thing. This time around, what everybody has watched with their eyes happen for 8 minutes, I think we are at a moment where Governor Cuomo has talked about, Representative John Lewis has talked about, we talked about a moment where that ask that AJ was talking about, that ask that you've got, this is the moment for that ask where there can be real change. That then leads to someone in their heart, in their head and their heart saying, no, I won't do this. They shouldn't want to do it ever, but to know that there are consequences to actions will change outcomes.
Brother Kenneth, let me ask you a question. Is there room for it to be revisited?
Well, we are in the appeal process right now, and the low-hanging fruit is the Fourth Amendment. The fact that you were supposed to be protected from illegal search and seizure. These officers, you know, had they not broken down his door and gone in there, he probably would have been alive today. We know that there are 3 times that you can enter a person's home. Warrant, permission, or exigent circumstances. They didn't have any of those 3. when they made entry into my father's home. Okay, and again, I always go back to these things. It is the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects from unreasonable search and seizure, and that no warrant shall issue without probable cause. They did not have that. So we are in the appeal process. It's been 2 years. We are still waiting for a decision. It's more of a hurry up and wait, but I can't believe or don't want to believe that they've had us waiting 2 years to say that we didn't win this appeal. Because more times than not, what we have seen is that when you're going to lose an appeal, it just comes through right away, and they just give you the decision and tell you why. You know, but I think that right now, I will definitely agree is that we are at a point right now, because of what people witnessed on this social media platform, people are tired of seeing Black people dying at the hands of law enforcement, and it has really sunk in now. And one of the biggest things that I find is beautiful about this is the fact that when you look out there and you see people on the front lines, it is a diverse group of people. It is not just Black people out there saying you're killing Black people. You have white people out there saying, no, you're killing Black people and you have to stop doing that.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
that we
Amen.
are 2.5 times more likely to be killed, either being compliant or non-compliant. Either way, my hands up will get me killed, my hands down will get me killed. Me dressed in a suit can get me killed. Me dressed with a hoodie on can get me killed. Okay, because I can't change the color of my skin. So this is what is beautiful when you look out there and you see such a diverse group of people out there demanding accountability and standing in solidarity for one common cause. And I'm hoping and praying that it's going to wake people up, you know. But I see a lot of the media doing here is they're focusing on the negative aspects of this, talking about, oh, they're looting, they're rioting, they're, you know, but I see police officers ramming gates and running over innocent protesters. This is what I see. I see police officers pushing a young woman down because she might be yelling or screaming. You know, again, they're supposed to be held to a higher standard, and this is not happening, you know. So, and then they'll put these narratives out and say, well, the reason the officer rammed the gate was because there was a bag on the top of the car that was on fire, so that's why he rammed the gate. Really? You know, then you see people busting out windows in storefronts, and then it's alleged that the person that was doing it was a police officer dressed up as a protester.
Exactly.
And then you see another video where a guy is being interviewed by the news and he's saying, I was beat up by 2 Black guys because I yelled all lives matter. But then all of a sudden, a video surfaces of this guy standing outside his vehicle with a compound bow in his hand, yelling, screaming, and pointing it at people, ready to let the arrow go at somebody. So it's important that we don't just automatically go with these narratives that we see out there.
Can I ask you guys a question? Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
As a former reporter, what did you think of them arresting the CNN reporter in the middle of all that in Minneapolis?
You know,
I'll let you answer that one. Go ahead.
I watched it live. I have an answer.
I just want to say that it's unfortunate that it happened. I'm gonna be very politically correct on this.
I'm not. I got an answer to that.
It's unfortunate that it happened, but in some respects, it's a good thing it happened because people can see that this is just an institutional thing, a systemic issue, that these police feel like it's a do as I say, not as I do. I can do whatever I want to. I don't care who you are. I don't care who you work for. In any other profession, you couldn't get away with that. In any other profession.
All right, can I just say this?
You couldn't get away with it. I couldn't get away with it. I work in social work. I couldn't hurl racial slurs at somebody and just put my hands on them and try to justify that. I'm going to get fired immediately.
Right.
Can I just say this? I
Lorraine,
watched it live while it was going on in CNN. It was surreal. But let me just say this. 1 block away, a white reporter for CNN covering the same exact scenario was treated with courtesy, respect, and was allowed to broadcast. Something to think about right there.
Well,
I watched it live. It
my
was
problem-
surreal.
my
CNN admitted it too.
My problem was that it was like, first off, they say they were questioning if he was really a reporter
They
or if he
lied.
had
They
the right,
lied.
if he had the right to be there.
Yeah, microphone.
Most amateur or whoever do not have professional camera equipment. He had his badge, he had his mic on, he was live. You understand what I'm saying? He explained that, and he did say, if this is not where you want me to stand, where is it that you want me to stand? He said that 3 times when they was arresting him, and he asked, why are you arresting me? I had a problem with that. Shout out to a couple of people that's listening. Wayne Robinson, Marista Monet, Mark Munich, and the incomparable Biz Marquis. What's going on, sir? What's going on? Thank you for all those mixes, Biz, because they've been getting me through. So you're running at it, and this is not the regular normal campaign interview, but this is not a normal time. I mean, not only are you dealing with the corona situation, which never ended, and I think, unfortunately, we're going to see more of an outbreak because of some of the protests, because I've seen many of them without masks on, and they're right bumped up against each other. And, if somebody's asymptomatic and didn't know it, there's going to be a lot of people in that area that's going to get sick from that. And then they're going to take it home. So we need to, for those who pray, we need to pray over that situation. But then you have this going on, so it's definitely not the norm.
It's not your typical campaign, but it's
right.
it's.
Let me actually, okay, speak, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say from day one, when the coronavirus started to break, so to speak, we changed everything completely. I wanted to change everything completely. We started out with how can we help? We secured masks. We secured hand sanitizer. We started securing food for the ICU unit at Mount Sinai Astoria. We delivered 20,000 masks to various homes for the elderly, for churches that were serving the neediest, that had food pantry lines out the door. And so we made it a campaign about helping people, because I wanted to demonstrate from day one that I would be present and I would be hands-on. Because as I told you earlier, AOC is MIA. She's always MIA. And to have me be out there, I want people to know that's how I campaign, and that's how I will be as a legislator as well. So did COVID change the campaign? It certainly did, but it was something that brought us to helping people in a very direct way as often as we could. And that's going to be the difference between she and I, and I'm convinced voters will see that, because she hasn't been around.
I want to give you a chance to at least speak on some of your platform, what you're here for, why people should vote for you, and share your website, social media, and all that kind of stuff. So we'll start with that.
Okay, why you should vote for me? Think of me and think of jobs, bringing jobs to Queens and the Bronx. People need to get back to work. My neighbors need to get back to work. When you see the lines at the food pantries, it's just horrific. Remember, my opponent threw away 25,000 jobs. She voted against hundreds of billions for the paycheck protection program. She voted against jobs. I will always be for jobs. That's what we need to get people back to work. Delivering healthcare outcomes. More resources for public health. It's horrible what Elmhurst Hospital went through and what Jacobi Hospital went through. We have to get them more money so that when we have crisis like this, people can be served. To see the lines out the door, to see the desperation that I saw in people was terrible. And third, unity within the Democratic Party. My opponent is divisive and polarizing within the Democratic Party. She's always driving us apart rather than bringing us together. We need unity. We need unity to get past the pandemic. We need unity in order to bring jobs. We need unity in order to achieve the changes that you candidates are demanding. That's what we need. So the choice couldn't be more stark, the difference between she and I. I am on the front lines, she's been on the sidelines. I am about unity, she's about division. She's all about her national celebrity. Everything she does, she says she voted against that stimulus bill, the only Democrat, because she cares so much? No, it's because she always wants to be in the headlines. It's not me. I want to roll up my sleeves, get to work, open a constituent services office in the Bronx, day one, in the district, which she never did, and actually help people directly. That's the difference.
AJ, can I speak?
Wait, social media,
AJ, come
website?
Oh, my
on.
social media, yeah. MichelleCC2020.com is my website, and you can follow me on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, Facebook, all of them. Michelle Caruso-Cabrera, and you can get updated on my campaign by texting Unity to the number that you see behind me.
Lorraine, if you have a question for the candidate, this is a candidate interview. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Yes, it is, sir. And that's what I'm trying to do, sir. Thank you very much. Okay.
Right.
Couple of things. First of all, straight up, I support you. I relate with you.
Questions.
I relate with you. Okay, there are points, and while I'm saying that, let me say I'm sorry for the questions I'm gonna ask you, but I gotta ask them. All right. I got several questions for you. Some about policy and your district and stuff like that. But I need to ask a very important question right now. It's got to do with what's happening right now. If you had to choose between marching with protesters and standing in the podium as an elected official, which one would you choose? And tell me why, please.
Why couldn't you do both?
No, I'm asking you to choose either or. Because you can't be in two places at one time. And I'm sure you can support them both. But if you had to choose right now, because the people are listening, right now, which one would you choose?
Where I would stand? I would stand by.
Yes.
I would stand with the people. I want to stand with the people.
And why?
Why?
Yeah, why?
This race to help people. I mean, that's why you go into public service, because you want to help people. It's that simple. Look in people's eyes. What do you need? What can I do to help? That's why I want to hold constituent services hours myself, so that I can hear directly from people when I come home from Capitol Hill and say, what do you need? In my former life as a reporter, there's two kinds of TV journalists. There are the TV journalists who never like to leave the studio. The lights are always perfect. It's never too hot. It's never too cold. That wasn't me. I was always out. I was the chief international correspondent for a reason, because it was on the road. Because the way you learn is you get out there and you talk directly to people, and you find out. You can only find out things up close. You can't stay inside like my opponent did when she didn't come home at the height of the crisis. You got to get out there. So that's I hope that answers your question. What's your next one?
Next question, Lorraine.
Okay. Next question is, she's been very progressive and she's got a lot of people behind her and stuff like that. Word is out that you are being funded supported, um, um, and okay, by Republicans. I am not against that because all my friends are Republicans. I've been a Republican for a long time. I just changed my party because Trump is an asshole, you know, with all due respect. Okay, what do you say to the people? Because the word is out. Everyone is saying she's being supported, she's being funded by Republicans. This is a Republican agenda. She's not in favor of the people. How do you respond to that?
I'm a Democrat. I have always been pro-choice, pro-same-sex marriage. I am extremely supportive of immigrants. It's one of the key reasons I got into the race, because I'm the daughter and the granddaughter of immigrants, and I believe in the American dream. Yeah. I believe in labor's right to organize, and I believe we have to strengthen Social Security and Medicare dramatically, because people are going to rely on them when they retire, and they need that help. So I am a Democrat. I am funded by many, many Democrats. She should be wondering, why is it that so many Democrats want to fund me against her? Because she's the one who's not a Democrat. She's a Democratic socialist. Remember, she's the one, when asked about Joe Biden by New York Magazine, she groaned. They said it, she groaned, and she said, in any other country, we wouldn't be in the same party. And she's right. In every other country, she'd be in the Socialist Party. She's the one who's not a Democrat. I'm a Democrat.
Any more follow-up questions, Lorraine? One more? No?
Let me. I just want to kind of interject there. First, let me just say that I've been on I've been getting a couple of texts, so I guess people see me on this this live feed.
Superstar.
And they. And one is, interestingly enough, one is from the Bronx and one is from Queens.
Okay.
And they both said that they have seen you around, that you are very visible in the communities. So
that's been the
goal. So, I guess in that sense, kudos to you. Now, I'm a believer that, unlike my sister Lorraine here, you can be in both places at the same time,
Yo, I'm working on that
okay.
now. I'm learning,
look at me, Lorraine, I'm all over the place. Okay?
I'm learning.
I think that, a lot of times, even when people ask me about, elected positions and things like that, it comes down to where you can do the best work. Like, I don't personally feel I could do the best work in an elected position because, although I'm very careful about things that come out my mouth, I'm going to say what I'm going to say, whether you like it or not. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat anything. And
nobody can stop you.
I'm just gonna get right to the point, and I'm gonna call it as I see it. But my problem that I have with elected officials, and I'm not saying that you did this, but this is what would turn me off from you, is if only around election time I see you. See, I need to see you other than election time.
Oh, yeah.
I need to see
You're talking about my opponent right now.
Yeah.
You're talking about my opponent. So, when I have been out, people tell me, they're like, you know what? We haven't seen her ever since she got elected, and now suddenly she's showing up.
So,
yeah, it's true.
Even the other day when we held the vigil for George Floyd in White Plains, the Westchester County District Attorney showed up. He doesn't show up to events. Why is he there? And he's actually speaking. Are you truly standing in solidarity with these people right now? Or are you just there for a paparazzi moment, for somebody to take a picture and say, look, you were there? And that is the problem that I have with elected officials when they do that. If I look up and I see you at different events all the time, and you show up to that, I have no problem with it. But I will challenge you if I say, I haven't seen you, and now all of a sudden you pop up.
I expect you to.
So I will say kudos to you, because these are two people that I value their opinion. And if they would have told me anything other than this, if they said, I don't see her, I would have told you that. You know? So they actually are saying that they do see you around.
And I will welcome the scrutiny when I am elected.
You know, a fantastic segue. Fantastic segue. Alessandra Ocasio, one of the things that her campaign is trying to highlight and trying to bring forth is the fact that you lived in Trump Towers prior to running, and then that you moved into the district to run. So therefore, you are not connected with the district, you're not aware what's going on with the people, and that you are basically a plant. How do you answer to that?
Well, that's pretty hilarious coming from somebody who was actually raised in Westchester and wasn't actually raised in the Bronx, okay?
Yeah, that's true.
So, you know, this isn't about where I used to live. This is about what I'm gonna do and what I'm gonna do for people. I'm talking to you from Sunnyside, Queens, and I love it. I love Queens and the Bronx, and I love New York. I wasn't born in New York, but I sure wish I was. And I was getting here as fast as I could. And I'm in this race because she is bad for New York. She is bad for the Times. She's bad for our neighborhoods. Look at her record. Drives out jobs, votes against healthcare, votes against PPP. And then also, by the way, voted to raise taxes. You know, Governor Cuomo's been begging to get rid of this SALT tax. If you own a house and you can't deduct now your state and local taxes anymore. She voted with the president on that. Again, she's always working against everyone in the party. It's terrible. We need somebody who's going to work for New York, who's going to make New York a great place to stay. Not
you know, what's interesting is that Ms. Ocasio, she touts on her Facebook page, on her Congress page, on every other page she can think of. She talked about that she has been part of hundreds of legislation, bills, and so on. And when I did my research, what I found out was that the hundreds of bills that she touts that she's been involved in, she is just another congressperson with hundreds of other that have been their names added. And then when I did my research also, only 10 of the hundreds of bills that she's touted have come into fruition. None of them have been bills that she has introduced, and none of them have to do with the people. These are helping other folks in other cities. How do you respond to that, ma'am?
Well, you know, I'm not surprised.
Can I interrupt real quick? Sure. I want you to respond because we so much into the George Floyd. Technically, we would be ending the show now. I'm extending it. I don't know how long you can stay, but I'm extending it to 8:30 if you can stay. If you and then I just so we're going to 8:30 because technically we would be signing off now, but we've spent so much time on George Floyd, so I wanted to get that. Now you can answer your question. And thank you everybody. Thank you everybody who's tuning in. We appreciate that. And also shout out to Pepsi Martinez, whose hat I was wearing. It just got warm though. Really nice hat. Thank you. Go ahead.
AJ, I'm gonna have to step off of this. I got another call I gotta get on.
Right. But any last words from you?
Get out there and vote.
Most important words tonight. Most important words tonight.
Because it's gonna be tricky this year.
Yeah. Yo, Ken, thank you as always for tuning in, for just dropping in on us.
Much love, my brother.
Thank you. Thank you.
Peace.
I'll
Much
see
love.
you soon. All right.
Bye.
Michelle, now the question.
So Lorraine, I'm not surprised. I don't know if you saw there was a story in the paper last week or the week before that nobody in the New York delegation wants to work with her. It's
No,
always
I didn't see that, but I did the research on her bills.
yeah.
Which, no, I think 3 have gone by, but they didn't really have anything to do with her district.
She's always talking about how bold her legislation is, but it's
Yeah.
ineffectual if it actually never comes to fruition, right? You've got to do things that are real. For example, and one of the key things that a legislator does is, can you bring resources to the district for people who need help? For example, when it comes to climate change, you know, the issues with the rising seawater, so much of the district is actually waterfront, right?
Yes.
Locust Point is dealing with flooding. Can we get them a seawall? Something like that, really tangible things that can make a difference for people who have homes that they've invested in, but they're worried now about their property values. What can be done to help them? Those are the ways I think about it. What are the real things that you can bring home and do for people? Things like, you know, increased use of broadband and making sure we don't have broadband deserts based on what happened with the pandemic.
Especially for the school children.
Exactly, schools too, right? Those are real things. They're going to negotiate an infrastructure bill. LaGuardia is in the district. Can we improve LaGuardia? Well, by the way, there's not many planes flying right now. Can we speed up the construction if we had the money and finally get through this, you know, dramatic construction that's been so disruptive, but is necessary? So those are the ways I think about what I would do as a legislator. Real things for real people that help them in real ways.
How would you?
Real quick, I just want to also, again, I want to say, you know, Black Westerners, we try to get both sides. We try to get the other candidates. So we are reaching out to the AOC camp. If anybody, and she is welcome, we would like to do an interview with her to give her to make her case. And then for you, the voter, can make an informed decision by what you see and hear from your own eyes and ears. That was the purpose of all of this. So I mean, I don't want anybody to think that we're just bashing her. I'm not taking any side.
I'm not bashing her.
Let me finish. So Black West, so we are reaching out. So if anyone from the AOC campaign is watching this or the supporters, share this with her. We would like to get her on next week or, you know, in the next couple of weeks. Now, I want to get more back into the traditional, because, you know, again, we dealt with a lot of the George Floyd thing. Again, in a normal situation, we would have bumped the candidate and just had a full-on discussion about that. And I apologize for Lorraine for she wanted to talk more about the Yonkers issue, but I'm juggling this whole time thing. So, you know, it's not a normal situation. So, but I do want to get more back into the traditional questions about your district, why people should vote for you, not necessarily what she hasn't done. What will you do that she's not doing? Why? You know what I'm saying? Show me the difference. And the reason I say that, we hear voters, we always hear a candidate say, this person's not doing that, and this person's not doing that. And again, you are saying AOC said that, and then she's not doing it either. So tell me what you will do, not what she's not doing, what you will do for the community that needs to be done.
Bring jobs to the district. You know, when, from day one, when I got into this race, I heard from workers, from business owners, they want to see more jobs and better paying jobs. Let's go back to the Amazon situation where she pushed Amazon out. I had so many small businesses in the area say to me, wow, we thought we were going to have a real boom. Owner of a restaurant here, one of my favorite Mexican restaurants, says, yo pensé que iba a ser un boom. I thought we were going to have a boom. He was going to hire more waiters, more kitchen staff. Those are more jobs, right? So we got to bring jobs. I would do everything possible to bring jobs to the district. She has done everything possible to drive them away. Still, to this day, when we are handing out masks, when we are at the food pantry lines, people are asking me, about jobs. When can they go back to work? As soon as it's safe. They are desperate to go back to work. Many of them can't get unemployment. Many of them didn't get that $1,200 check. And they're hungry and starving. They want to work. You didn't get it?
I ain't get no check. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Wow.
Oh, I got one. I got one.
So work and jobs, I want you to equate that with me. I will do everything possible. It's a real attitudinal shift. We are open to people who want to come and see the potential in Queens and the Bronx. I am not here to judge you and demonize you and tell you to go home and go away. I am here to welcome you to help us get back on our feet. And that's a huge difference. Why would anybody come here now while she's still in office? Second,
Okay, go ahead.
go ahead.
I just want to add, because a listener, you know, sometimes you got to talk to your listener. So they were like, why do we care if she's not in Westchester? This is Black Westchester. Do you know what? Bronx borderlines and what happens in Bronx affects what happens in Westchester. You know what I'm saying?
Congress people vote together.
And you need to know what's going on in the areas around you.
That's right.
For your community as well. So that answers that question. But go ahead, right? Go to your second point, the second thing you make.
Healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to deliver more resources to the public health system. Bottom line, got to get more money to public hospitals like Jacobi and Elmhurst so that we don't ever see the crisis that we saw there, that everybody could see again on TV with their own eyes, hundreds of people in line desperate for health care because the hospital system was so overwhelmed. That cannot happen again. And that's federal government's job, is to help deliver resources to the right place and to the neediest places. And then I will be about unity within the Democratic Party. I am not going to be working against Nancy Pelosi like she does. I'm not going to be working against Governor Cuomo like she does. Remember, Governor Cuomo begged to get rid of this SALT tax, which means you can't deduct your state and local income tax if you own a home. It's suddenly become much more expensive to stay in New York. It's forcing a lot of people to leave New York. She voted with the president. She voted against Governor Cuomo. She voted to raise taxes on New Yorkers. When, by the way, I don't know if you saw in your research, Lorraine, she didn't pay her taxes. Do you see she still has an outstanding tax? Yeah. I mean, you know, she's a hypocrite every step of the way, whether it's taxes, whether it's the promise to come home, and she doesn't come home. But that's what I want you to associate with. Jobs, better money and more money for healthcare, and less divisiveness, less polarization. She is polarizing and divisive, and her ideas are bad for the times. She's bad for New York, and she's bad for our neighborhoods.
I want to interrupt one thing, and I just want to draw a distinction too. I do support a certain amount of divisiveness and going up against the establishment, because that's what I'm all about. You understand what I'm saying? But when it becomes,
I'm not surprised.
I guess that your point, and let me just ask you, your point is when it becomes that's all you do, and you're not even willing to work with people, you just want to be divisive, and you just want to be against this. That just because is that what you're speaking?
In the headlines because she wants her name in the headlines.
Right. Yeah, is that what you're speaking about?
After a while, it becomes about clout. It's not about the people anymore. It's about clout.
Well, that's what I was asking. Is that what you're describing? Because I just want to make it clear, I'm not. Because there's some people that feel like I should never be divisive. I should never go up against the establishment. I should never speak up against anything like that. And there's room for that. We need more people to do that. But I also work with those who don't have my best interests at heart. If we can get somewhere on an issue. So you know what I'm saying? And I think that's what you're saying. It's getting to a point where that's all she does. Not that it's bad to do it. And I wanted to get you to clear that up.
It's all about her celebrity. It's all about maintaining her national profile. And how about working on real things? You know, I talked about the seawalls. What about money for more technical training? Money for, right where I sit, we've got 2 technical high schools, an aviation high school and a technical high school. And we have 3 union locations here that are all about apprenticeship and training. Those are real things that we can do so
Yeah.
that
For
people
choose,
can,
for youth, yeah.
right, that you can do for you, and you can work and buy a house, raise a family, sleep at night, knowing that you can pay your mortgage or your rent and get food on the table. Those are the things that I'm very concerned about and that I would most focus on.
We have a little less than 15 minutes left. I'm going to throw a couple of topics at you and see if we can answer them briefly so we can get as much stuff in as possible. Campaign reform. It's an issue that is important to me because I've seen even on the most local level, like a Mount Vernon library trustee level, in elections where good people can't get into office because other people who may not be as good can outspend them. And there is no campaign reform. So we don't always get the best candidate. You get somebody who through the means of their own or their supporters can almost buy their way into the seat.
Or can use a social media platform to get the vast majority of their money from outside the state, which is something that we see from my opponent. It is unfortunate, the need for money in politics. You know, how you run without it, I don't know. I mean, it's so difficult. So I would welcome reform that makes it less costly to actually run, because then you're right, we could have a much larger group of people running with good ideas, rather than having to rely on people or have people who can raise money. I agree with the frustration about the money in politics.
Yeah.
Second one, income equality. For, against, with just thoughts?
Oh, I'm against income inequality.
Right.
But you know, my plan for income inequality: jobs, good paying jobs, access to education and training that get people good paying jobs. That is an incredible way to improve the terrible levels of income inequality that we're seeing in the country. Good jobs, great work. That's what, and the other thing I would, you know, something that's happened, and I know you want me to answer quickly, but I want to tell you a quick story about a friend of mine who had wanted to sell purses on Fifth Avenue at a fancy shop. We would all know the name if I told you. And do you know what they told her? They told her no, because she didn't have a college degree. And I thought, wow, that is ridiculous, because my friend is very good.
Were they nice purses? Were they really nice purses? Like, could they be in a, could they, no, not my point.
Give me the hookup. Give me the hookup.
My point was, were they of a quality that could be in that store, or, you know, were they not? Because sometimes.
Doesn't matter, AJ.
No. Go ahead, because.
No, the point I would make is that she would have been really good at selling these fancy purses. Okay. And you know what a person in sales
needs? She couldn't work there, not that she couldn't sell.
She could work there. They wouldn't let her work there.
I misunderstood you.
Interview her because she didn't have a college degree. That's ridiculous. When you're in sales, you know what you need? You need to know math, and you need a good course in ethics. That's what you need. But what's happening, the reason I give you that example is we're forcing people to get college degrees for jobs that shouldn't require it. And so people end up in debt for very bad reasons. And then they're frustrated and angry. And then we end up with income inequality because they're spending so much of their income paying back loans that maybe they should have never taken on, when they could have taken a good ethics course and been a good salesperson, or gone to a technical high school and gotten a real job in a union that pays very, very well, and you can live very well on those jobs.
Affordable housing. I hear a lot of elected officials and candidates talking about affordable housing, yeah. But they talk about a whole lot of housing that I can't afford. So your thoughts on affordable housing?
Yeah, we need more of it. There's a project that would bring 12,000 units right here to Queens. She walked away from the project. It's Sunnyside Yards. There's an advisory panel where she's supposed to sit on the advisory board. She walked away. She won't do it at all. It's another example of how divisive she is. It's her way or no way. That's ridiculous. It's a framework from the city. We have this huge area that could be something. And the city has been very thoughtful about what would we like it to be. We want it to be 100% affordable housing and real affordable housing with low, very low income requirements to be able to go into this. And she won't even sit on the advisory board. How do you have a seat at the table? How do you have any input if you just walk away? Another example of how she's divisive. I would sit there and make sure that the community's demands, talking about demands, are met, which is people want Queens and the Bronx to be the welcoming place that it has been for more than 100 years. For the newly arrived, for people who are strivers, who want to make it in America, right? We have to work on that. And it takes work, and it takes working together.
My next topic is homelessness. Even in the best of times before coronavirus, before the loss of jobs, a lot of people were 2, 3, maybe 4 paychecks away from being homeless.
Yeah.
In Yonkers, we've covered a lot of homelessness and in detail. And I learned a lot in doing the homelessness stories. I know, you know, as a journalist, we learn so much by the stories we do. We end up learning more and more. There's a whole nother category, the working homeless. They have jobs, the kids go to school every day, but they just can't afford to live somewhere, and that's being grown. Now with Corona, more jobs are being lost, and homelessness is more of a bigger problem in here, especially in Westchester, the richest county, one of the richest counties in the country. They claim they don't act like that homelessness exists. So people get pushed down to the lower Westchester borough cities, and if you get pushed anymore past Mount Vernon, you're in the Bronx, or past Yonkers, you're in the Bronx. So speak on homelessness.
Well, so what you're talking about with the working homeless, that's why affordable housing is so important, increasing the supply of housing, period, so that way there are more choices, and affordable housing is part of that, and it has to absolutely be a part of the solution there. If we don't, but also we got to get people back to work, because you're right, Westchester, they move to Bronx, move to Queens. If it's too expensive here, then they leave the state. Then we lose workers. We lose the tax base. It's an existential threat to New York, what is happening here. If we don't make it more affordable to stay here, people leave, and it becomes a very bad cycle.
Right, we can't afford to live in Long Island, you come to Queens and then you're out. So yeah. People like Long Island, people can't afford to live in that sort of stuff either. I have a question that actually is good, from a Stephen Simpson.
Yours were good too.
No. I had questions, but I'm just saying this was something that I like. Stephen Simpson said,
is from the Rotary Club of Yonkers.
Okay. Should you be elected, give us 3 measurable deliverables that we can gauge you on in 6 months after the election. 6 months, in your first 6 months, I guess.
I'm going to open a constituent services office in the district in the Bronx.
My specialty, yes.
Yes. By the way, remember, she never opened one in the district, for those who are just joining us.
That's necessary.
Jobs. You will see me work tirelessly to bring jobs. I will reach out to every business leader I know to say, can you come here and help us get people back to work? And I will vote for all the bills that deliver healthcare resources to our district. Those are 3 measurables. And I promise to be present, to hold constituent services office hours myself. That's a 4th.
Healthcare seems to be something everyone talks about. So where do you fall in Medicare for all, the public option? Where do you fall? What do you support?
So Medicare for all is about taking health insurance away from people who already like it, right? If you've been in a union, you have given up income through the years because you want, because you were negotiating for better benefits, including health insurance. Medicare for all removes that. It removes a key reason why a lot of people want to be in a union, and I don't think that's a good idea. I think if people have health insurance that they like, they should be able to keep it. President Obama had a much better idea, which is there are many people who don't get it through work. What can be done to make the individual buying a health insurance policy, how can we make it more affordable for individuals? We got to work on improving Obamacare.
Affordable Care Act. Mm-hmm.
So that's where I would start with, is to have many more choices when it comes to individuals who are out there buying it.
A comment that also goes with the affordable housing thing. Every New York, we have to redefine the notion of affordable housing. I read that because I totally agree.
Yeah.
And it says every New Yorker, everybody in this country, but it says every New Yorker has a right to an affordable home in a safe neighborhood. Question, I guess, realistic measurables and anticipation of gut-wrenching city budget cuts. I guess that was a comment on your mentionables. Is there anything I haven't asked you? We're coming to the close. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you want everybody to know about you? You want, platform, anything you want to mention or that I haven't asked you?
Well, first of all, it's been great being on with you. I used to host a show, and you do a very good job, because as you know.
Thank you. Yeah.
Damon, I got 2 questions. AJ, I got 2 questions before she goes.
Go ahead.
You're often a traffic cop, as you've noticed when you host a show.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Please go to my website and read more. I want to save time for Lorraine to ask her questions, michellecc2020.com, but associate me with somebody who's going to work to bring jobs, healthcare, unity to the party, and be present. So you can talk to me directly. I talk to people, not to Twitter. AOC is always MIA, but MCC will be at your side.
We have 3 minutes, Lorraine. You have 1 minute to get in whatever you're trying to get in.
Okay. You gotta answer these real
1 minute.
quick.
That's time you have. 1 minute.
Okay. These are real quick. Okay, real quick. People and children in the education system, will you secure money so that they can all have laptops? Because teaching now is not about school books, it's about technology. Will you work on that?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Okay. I've been thinking intensely especially about broadband. Broadband is available in all of Queens, and yet a huge percentage of people here in Queens don't have it. Why? We have to figure out why. The city actually did a really deep examination of this question, and I talked to the author of the report to see, how can we make this go further? And we got to figure out why it is that, do we need to help if people don't have enough income to pay for broadband because it's expensive? Or sometimes parents don't think they need it. And we got to explain, no, you really need it. How can we help to make sure you get it? But yes, the hardware, it's the hardware and the broadband, right? Together.
Absolutely. It comes together.
Sure.
20 seconds. 20 seconds, Lorraine.
Okay. One more question.
20 seconds.
What do you think about the riots going on right now, and how do you respond to them?
Look, I understand people are angry, and they are right to be angry. What we saw on camera is not justifiable. It is horrific and atrocious. Mm-hmm. Peaceful protest, yes. Okay. Yes, absolutely. But no, I wrote down what Representative John Lewis said today because I thought he said it so perfectly. He said, I know your pain, your rage, your sense of despair. Justice has been denied for far too long. Rioting, looting, and burning is not the way. Organize, demonstrate, sit in, stand up, vote. Be constructive, not destructive. By the way, that last line, that should be the rule for all our lives. We got to be constructive, not destructive.
Amen.
And when you find a strong statement like that, you just end on a strong statement. On a good note. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank everybody for tuning in and hanging out for our extra half an hour on a special show. Like I said, it wasn't regular circumstances. And thank you for I wanted to talk to you more on the journalistic thing, because doing this is definitely, you have to balance personalities, egos, time. You have to balance everything.
It's
and then
hard.
you have to get the most out, so for your listeners to get the most of. So it is definitely a daunting task, and I am exhausted after I finished.
You did great.
But
you did amazing, AJ.
And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We have people tuning in from everywhere. A couple of new people: Tony Nix, Steven Simpson, the Maris Monet, Prince Robinson, Sonji West. What's going on? Prince Robinson, I said Eddie Johnson, James Cook, what's going on, sir? Nas Duncan, Mark Minnick, I think I said his name earlier. There was a few others.
There's several. There's hundreds others.
Anybody I didn't mention that you want to mention, if you can, real quick? And Lorraine, you got anybody? Okay.
No.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We greatly appreciate it. As always, you could be doing anything else, but you decided to ride with us, and we greatly appreciate it. This is Black Westchester Presents the People Before Politics Radio Show, the home edition, on every Sunday, 6 to 8, usually on intermixradio.com. Tune in next week. I'm not sure. Next week we have, we're back with the New York 17 Congressional District, which is that Nia Lowy seat. And I believe we have Allison Fine, the candidate, on. We also this Friday have How to Police the Black Community Part 3, 11 a.m. Friday. You don't want to miss that. You go on Black Westchester if you miss parts 1 and 2. And we had a couple of special editions in between. Still working on a New Rochelle edition of Modern Day Hero Mondays of New Rochelle. Haven't pulled that together just yet. But stay tuned to Black Westchester. Like everybody else, we had to re-navigate all this and everything, but we are continuing to bring you the news with the Black point of view and continue to give you the real talk for the community since 2014, coming up on our 6-year anniversary. Until next time, peace. Okay, we are officially off live stream on Facebook. Just so everybody knows, we're not on live. See you later. Thank you, Michelle.
Hey, this was great.
Again,
I mean it. We're really good at this. It's really hard. People, people criticize you. We would get these nasty messages. I'm like, oh yeah, you come up and do this. You come up and, like,
Right.